Have you ever heard someone say that the price of something is just too expensive for certain families? Perhaps it's the high rent charged for local housing in a particular area. Perhaps it's the price of gas at the filling station. Well, politicians hear these complaints from voters all the time, and given politicians want our votes, it makes it appealing for our elected officials to try to control market prices to help those who are suffering. Price controls like this have been prominent throughout history. During World War II, President Roosevelt instituted the General Maximum Price Regulation, freezing most prices at what they were in March of 1942. President Richard Nixon had another go with economy-wide controls in August 1971, banning price increases across the board. Now, since then, we've realised that those broad price controls are extremely destructive to economic activity and do little to control overall inflation. But that doesn't stop people advocating price controls in individual product markets, whether that be capping rents in a local area, utilities prices, or even the cost of gas. The economics of price controls, especially those that set maximum prices or price ceilings, are actually fairly simple. When the government imposes a price ceiling that fixes the price charged below the true market price, that's the price determined by the supply and demand of the good, we really just see two effects. First, the quantity of the product demanded increases, because more customers want to have the product at that artificially low price. Second though, at the lower price, the suppliers have less of an incentive to produce or sell the goods in the market. It's simply less profitable for them to meet that higher demand with higher supply, reducing the quantity that they supply to the market. And both of these effects combined create a gap between the quantity demanded and the quantity supplied. In other words, we see a shortage. We've recently just seen an example of this in Europe. When the Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán put a price cap on gas and diesel to try and insulate his population from the effect of the Ukraine war, fewer gas suppliers from abroad were willing to export into Hungary, reducing the quantity supplied of gas. At the same time though, Hungarian drivers were keen to get hold of lots of gas given its artificially low price. The result? A shortage that saw long lines outside of filling stations in Hungary, and Orbán ultimately having to abandon the price control. Now, the example of Hungary raises a key point. If prices can't rise, then rather than consumers competing for goods by trying to bid up the price, we have to find an alternative way to decide who gets these scarcely available products. And the most common mechanism is having customers search around for where the product is available. We have effective first-come, first-served lines or queues for people getting what they want. Although the sticker price may be held low by the price ceiling, customers still face these time and search costs, so the true price they face to get the product in economic terms may still be very high. Now, to avoid creating these lines, a lot of price controls have historically been accompanied by rationing. That's governments or retailers actually restricting how much customers can buy of certain products on any visit to the store. Having to allocate goods in either of these two ways, by queuing or rationing, can lead to all sorts of economic inefficiency. Because under both of those mechanisms, the goods don't end up in the hands of those who value them most. And that often leads to black markets. That's people trading the controlled commodities at higher prices, albeit illegally. Now, shortages created by price controls don't just have impacts in the market of the controlled price. They often have damaging downstream effects through the supply chain. If suddenly there's a fuel shortage because the government caps the price of gas, then that of course makes trucking goods more difficult and uncertain because trucks require gas to power them. In some cases, it might even make it impossible to transport a certain good or product, leading to shortages of products in stores. It also makes it more difficult for some ordinary workers to get to their jobs, leading to all sorts of problems with businesses providing services, fulfilling appointments, or even meeting simple deadlines. And on top of all that, the lack of a price incentive also deters entrepreneurs from getting supplies to areas where they're desperately needed too, such as places suddenly hit by extreme weather. Now, in short, a price ceiling, by muffling the message of the true supply and demand situation in the economy, can actually make coordinating economic activity incredibly difficult across a whole range of sectors. Yes, the primary consequence is to create shortages in the market where the price control applies, but the overall damage can be much, much greater than that.